Joey asked me out on our first date by walking into the dealership that I worked at. And he came in and he asked for a tour, and I knew him from church, but I didn't know him well. So I walked him around, and the whole time I was showing him around the dealership, I just kept wondering, how is this gonna end? And when the tour was over, he told me that he was gonna pick me up in a couple days and that we were gonna go to dinner. Sure enough, he showed up as soon as work was over and took me out to his huge white truck and opened the door for me like a gentleman. And I climbed in and I smacked my head into the roof of the truck. And all I could think when he walked around the back of the truck to give me a minute to recover was that this was going to be a disaster of a date. And it really ended up being the best date that I've ever been on. We sat in an Italian restaurant and we talked about things that people probably don't talk about on first dates, but we kind of skipped all of the casual parts of getting to know each other. And I remember asking him, not quite knowing how he was going to respond, but I asked him how he felt about growing his family through adoption. And I knew that I had caught him off guard. It's obviously a question that nobody had ever asked him before on a first date, maybe ever. But he didn't even think about it. He said that if that's the way God wanted his family to be grown, then he was okay with that. And it wasn't a second best way of growing your family, but if that was the plan for his family, then that was the best plan for his family. And I just remember leaving that night thinking that I didn't know if I would ever meet somebody like that again. And that question was really important to me because I knew from a young age that I probably wasn't going to get pregnant. And I don't know why I knew that. But looking back on it now, I know that God told my heart that getting pregnant and growing my family that way was just not the way that he was going to choose for me to grow my family. So it was an important question for a first date, because if the question was that adoption wasn't a comfortable way of growing your family, then there couldn't be a second date. Joey and I dated for 3 years and we got married. And shortly after we got married, we started trying to get pregnant. And within the first few months, I knew that it just wasn't going to happen. And I remember not knowing how to bring it up, not knowing how to tell my husband, my new husband, that even though we had only been trying for a couple of months, I just knew that it wasn't going to work. And we finally got to the point about 10 months later that we were ready to talk to a specialist. And God told my heart even then that there wasn't going to be an answer to why we were getting pregnant. It was just another step in the journey. You start trying to get pregnant and you don't, so you see a specialist. You go through the steps with the specialist, you find out what you can, if there's anything to find out, and then you move on. And the whole time, probably a total of 1.5 years, I just kept waiting for that day that we could fill out our adoption application and really know that our family was going to start, that we were going to be a mom and a dad. And infertility was hard, don't get me wrong. I remember so many nights where I would sit in a bookstore and I would just walk up and down the aisles of self-help or women's issues or even relationships, just trying to find that one book that wouldn't tell me how to do this thing called infertility, but I wanted to hear and read from someone else's words what I could not put into words. the things that were in my heart and in my head, the confusion that I felt, the sadness, the grieving process that you have to go through when you know you're never going to get pregnant. And I just never found that book. I never found somebody else's words that I could read to make it all come together and make sense. And I read the devotions, I read the verses, I memorized scripture, I talked to other women, and the only thing that helped me, the only thing that could help me make sense of this chaos in my head was to write it down myself. And so I started On Loan from Heaven. My name is Lindsay Smith. I am the wife to Joey and the mom to Hannah and Hunter. On Loan from Heaven is our story.